What was it like seeing state baseball go off without a hitch for you?
You know, we had some hiccups during the season, but overall, I think we had to be pleased. 96% of the teams finished their season. 6% at some point during the year were impacted. But when you consider 330 some programs, um, that I think is a good result.
And to sit there at state baseball, and in particular last week, see fans social distancing, seeing players following those guidelines that are in place, is that encouraging for you as the director of the IHSAA?
You know, it is because it shows that folks were committed to doing what they needed to do in order to be able to have us run the season. You know, in particular, our ADs, our coaches, our players, they knew what was at stake and they did everything they could to make it happen. And then, the folks at Principal Park were outstanding and they did a great job of putting things together and protocols in place to keep everybody safe.
So now, as we look ahead to football, which starts practices here on Monday, I guess what is the hope? What is kind of the outlook like from your perspective as to what the season could look like?
You know, I think, again, one of the things that we learned through baseball is in between the lines, things went pretty good. Anybody that was impacted by a case it was contracted outside the program. So what that says to us is if we follow the protocols and we do what's needed to be done, I think we can keep everybody safe within those lines. And football is a different thing. We know it. It's a little different from baseball. Baseball obviously is by nature it's a little bit social distancing. Football's a little different. But what we know is out of that 48 minutes that the clock runs, there's 12 minutes of interaction. And so we've got to mitigate that 12 minutes. And the biggest concern is at the line. So there's 5 to 6 seconds of interaction at the line, during a play. And we need to figure out, how do we control things within that time frame in that area. That's the biggest challenge. Doesn't mean we don't address the other areas. We do, but that's the biggest area.
Are there concerns for you as football season starts up? I mean, obviously 6% of teams in baseball season had some issues, but with more contact, is there that concern that there could be more spread of this?
You know, it's a little bit like starting baseball, and where we started was we didn't know what was going to happen, and because it was new. Well, we have an idea of what might happen, but it's so different. The sport is different that we're going to have to see where it goes. One of the things that I've been preaching is let's not worry about things that haven't happened yet. Let's plan as best we can, and then as things come our way and we have to shift gears and we've got to change a little bit, then we will. We've been adjusting on the fly a little bit all year since spring, and we'll have to do that as well. We just have to be good problem solvers.
So with that too, how confident are you that we can get to the finish line? I mean, I know November is still couple months off here, but how confident are you we can get there?
I'm an optimistic guy, so I want to be confident, and I want to say until we get to a point where we feel like it's not going to happen, we're going to think it's going to happen.
So as these teams start get to going and get their season going, how many football games do you plan on attending this fall, and what do you expect from fans this fall?
You bet. Every Friday, I think I'll get out to a different game, and small school, large school, get a feel for how that looks. I think our players, coaches, ADs, they've shown that they're going to do what it takes to make sure we get through this. I think we're asking the fans to do the same thing. It's so much self-discipline. I mean, you can only put so many things in place, and 1 or 2 or 3 administrators isn't going to be able to enforce social distancing. People are going to have to discipline themselves.
The other aspect people were talking a lot about with baseball was the county to county handling through the independent health departments. Is that still what you guys are relying on for county to county for school to school situations, or is it a broad spectrum now?
A little more broad because the Iowa Department of Public Health has given the schools matrices on how to deal with cases and in what situations. So I think you're going to see a lot more consistency.
All righty. And then on that note, I mean, how excited are you for football to get started? And with Iowa being one of the few states now that hasn't made that move to spring. How excited are you for it to start?
I think all our fall sports I'm excited for. I think, I had sons that played golf, so I'm excited to get that going too. And cross country, swimming, volleyball, the whole package. We're excited to see things get rolling and give kids an opportunity to do things they love and more importantly, do things to get them connected to their schools again.
As we're seeing, we have an influx of kids looking to move from out of state into the state of Iowa. Is there anything that the association has talked about as far as making sure this is done appropriately and in a fair manner?
Well, a couple things. One, we only know what we know. And what we know is there are people reporting that people are going to move to Iowa and try to attend school to participate. So that may happen, it may not. We've had, not for COVID certainly, so the reason has changed, but every year we have families that move into Iowa and establish residency because of a job or something else. And so we have things in place for that. So if they move and they become bona fide residents of the district, they're eligible. And it won't be any different with this situation than it has been in the past.
Was there any talk of moving football or fall sports to the spring or postponing and trying to figure out more?
Everything was on the table. I think you have to, and you've got to be realistic and say, what ifs. And so, yeah, that was tossed around. And, one of the things we felt would be a struggle. And again, we don't know if we get shut down in a week or two and we've got to shift gears, who knows where we're going to land with that. But our initial thought was spring has already lost their season. For us to move fall into spring and squeeze that, we didn't think that was the right thing to do right now. But if conditions change and things change and it's something we have to look at, then we would look at it.
And we are seeing some schools saying we're doing virtual only. I mean, does that cause you any concern or pause, or are you just leaving it up to the athletic departments of these schools to make those ultimate decisions for what's best?
Yeah, I think those are local decisions. We have students who take courses online now. We have virtual academies in Iowa, and students can still participate in their local district of residence. We have homeschooled and dual enrolled kids. So, those things have been happening over the years, and there are protocols in place for that. So we won't make that call.
Final question for you. Obviously, 2020 has been crazy. As the director of the Iowa High School Athletic Association, what has this year been like? How can you sum it up from your perspective?
It's given us a great opportunity to find out what kind of problem solvers we are. I think anybody can cruise, right? Anybody can put it on cruise control and just roll with it. But when you're faced with the kind of challenges that not only the Athletic Association, but the Department of Public Health, the Department of Education, the governor's office, local school districts, I mean, when you were faced with the kinds of things we're faced with, that's where we earn our money. That's where we really do the important work that needs to be done. So, it's a heck of a challenge. And do we wish that our young people didn't have to deal with this and our schools didn't have to deal with it? Yes. But the fact of the matter is, here it is. So, we'll get after it.